Tonight on Student News, the public school system is up for another round of cuts next year. We look at how these cuts will affect the nuts and bolts needed for elective classes at Amherst High School.
And tonight, it's almost summer, so in our last episode of this season, we catch up with seniors to get some pointers on how they survived high school. Buckle up, we're almost there. It's June 20th, 2011, and Student News starts right now. Good evening. I'm Joshua Wolfson.
And I'm Allie Charrington.
And now, to the headlines.
A new study from researchers at the Center for Adolescent Substance Abuse Research shows that teen marijuana and ecstasy use has risen significantly in the last 3 years. Marijuana use jumped from 32% to 39% of teens surveyed from 2008 to 2010, and the use of ecstasy rose from 6% in 2008 to 10% in 2010. The study authors from the University of Minnesota argue that there should be more screenings and prevention measures put in place. Ken Winters, the director of the Center for Adolescent Substance Abuse Research, said, quote, "Anytime professionals have an option to work with parents or teenagers, even if it's not directly about a substance abuse issue, they should be putting drug use on the radar screen," unquote. He went on to say, quote, "Many healthcare settings don't have the luxury of specialized and expensive drug treatment, but a quick screening and a brief discussion about drug use should be more achievable in pediatric and other adolescent health settings," unquote.
Further on the substance abuse issue, another study from the University of Minnesota found that the practice of having adolescents drink alcohol under parental supervision may lead to later substance abuse. The idea behind this family drinking is that if teens are exposed to alcohol under parental supervision, it will teach them to drink in moderation. The study included 2,000 teens from the United States and Australia, where this practice is common. When the students were in 8th grade, 67% of Australian students had tried alcohol with an adult present, and 35% of the Americans had. By the next year, 36% of those same Australian students and 21% of the American students reported blacking out, getting into a fight, or experiencing other control issues related to alcohol. Mary O'Connor, a behavioral scientist at UCLA, notes, quote, "The teenage brain is much more vulnerable than the adult brain. Repeated drinking can lead to long-term deficits in learning and memory."
Last week, ABC News reported on 2 studies that showed that sleep deprivation among teen girls was linked to body image and eating habits. Studies were presented last Tuesday at a meeting of the Associated Professional Sleep Societies in Minneapolis. The first study found that teen girls who felt pressure to be skinny had a harder time sleeping than teen girls that did not feel those same pressures. The second study found that sleepy teens were more likely to crave carbohydrates. The lead author of the first study, Catherine Marchick from the University of North Texas, said of the studies, quote, "I think ours is one of the first studies to look at body image and sleep." She continued, quote, "If you're not satisfied with how you look, I think you might feel anxious about how you look to other people. And when you're trying to fall asleep, you might be ruminating about that," unquote. The study also showed that Caucasian girls were most likely to be affected by pressures to be skinny, and were also the most likely to be deprived of sleep. Dr. Keith Ihob, director of the Rose R. Kennedy Center Nutrition Clinic, said, quote, "If they can't seem to go to sleep at night for an extended period of time, you want to make sure that a doctor is involved, and if you suspect an eating disorder, that's a sign they need help," unquote.
From time to time, we here at Student News like to bring you the kooky, crazy, and downright insane stories from the news. This being our final episode of this season, we aim to not disappoint. Here are a few courtesy of the week. We start out in Wisconsin, where a 6-year-old boy has been accused of sexual assault. A 6-year-old boy. Why? For playing doctor with a fellow toddler, a 5-year-old girl. Although the boy is too young to face criminal charges, the prosecutors aim for state intervention. The DA said, quote, "This isn't about punishing him, the boy. It's about making sure he gets the help he needs." I would make one of my usual editorial comments about the story, but when we start prosecuting 6-year-olds for playing games, it has truly become too absurd to comment on. Which, consequently, brings us to New York State, where children's games such as wiffle ball, tag, and horseshoes could be categorized as, quote, non-passive recreational activities with significant risk of injury and could be regulated by health officials, according to a new proposed law. And finally, we come to Chicago, where a public school there recently banned students from bringing their own lunches from home. The school's rationale for this was that they didn't want students picking up their parents' bad eating habits. But according to one student, the food, quote, is disgusting, which is why I'm not eating lunch.
With an unresponsive economy, Amherst schools are looking down the line at another set of budget cuts for next year.
Very disappointing jobs report. Employers added just 54,000 workers to their payrolls in May.
The unemployment rate went up to 9.1%.
Factory orders fell to the lowest level in 2 years.
Home prices at their lowest level since 2002.
They're very difficult economic times.
This foreclosure crisis continues to grow.
The collapse of collapse.
The collapse of collapse.
American
Gas
families
prices
are
hit another record today.
to spend money.
I know a lot of people who are unemployed right now who haven't been in the past.
I think it's just preventing me from doing a lot of the things I'd like to do, both on my home and outside my home.
It has many impacts from the price of gas.
The price of gas.
The gas prices.
Traveling, for example, I like to travel a lot.
The rate at which college costs have been inflating.
Stressful situation. They have to deal with people around being worried and concerned about the economy.
At work where we've been asked to take furlough days, so that we've been asked to take days off without pay, and that will be continuing throughout the year.
People being more careful about what they're spending on, not spending for fun and cutting back, that kind of thing. People trying to sell their houses and not selling because the real estate market's bad.
If I knew that, would I be a school teacher?
What's the question again?
So that's right. That's where I tell you that I have no idea. I have no idea.
Sure. I think that until the world does true bookkeeping, where all the costs of producing and consuming are taken into account, trade deficits will be out of whack, and there's not a whole lot you can do about it.
Restoring some of the taxes that were cut during the Bush tax era, especially on the upper class, the wealthiest Americans.
Part of it has to do with China's inability or unwillingness to devalue its currency. So, because we don't have control over that, that certainly affects the value of our goods versus their goods. What we really should be able to do is put some kind of policies in place to put some pressure on them to be able to compete equitably. The other problem is not just economic but environmental, in that the reason they're able to produce all these cheap goods is because they're breaking what would be many environmental laws in our country. So, well, it depends on what you're talking about by green energy. I think that all corporations and all households could do a lot without even changing your mode of energy use, which is insulating, and there's many passive things that they could do. I think that depends on the kind of green energy. For instance, things like biofuels aren't necessarily very green because they're contributing to carbon dioxide. They're putting it right back in the atmosphere. I think that corporations should bear the cost. Even if it lowers production, we can't continue to grow at an unsustainable rate. So if it lowers production, it'll save the world.
I could vote for people that promise to cut taxes so that there'd be more money to spend in the economy.
I would love to be able to vote for someone who will help us create jobs within our country rather than sending them overseas, and to require that maybe 50% of those jobs that are now going overseas be brought back to this country.
We need more wars. Let's
more
go
wars?
to war. Yeah. Let's invade some country. Let's go to Mexico. Let's invade Canada. God damn it. Oops, no, you can't say that. Say,
Now, high school often seems like a long 4-year uphill battle. To get some tips from those who have already lived through it, I sat down with a number of now graduated high school seniors. Take a look.
I would say do as much as you can for as long as you can. You have time to rest later. Like, just do what you want to do. Do the sports, do the theater, do the singing, the dancing, I don't know, what have you. But take the hardest classes you can and just go for it. By the end of the day, you should have no energy left, and that means that you're doing it right.
Okay, so my take on surviving high school is that you don't survive it, you enjoy it. And you have to have that mental, to be in a sense of, like, this is stuff I need to learn to be successful in life, and you have to just take the best out of everything.
For going into freshman year, take it seriously from the start. I mean, I understand, like, yes, you're a kid, you want to have fun, and that's all well and good. There really isn't that much of a workload freshman year, but what work you do have, take it seriously and do it well. It does pay off in the end. I know that college and the rest of your life and whatnot seems pretty far away coming into high school, but honestly, you're gonna be where I am in a moment. So, looking back on it, I wish I'd taken my freshman year more seriously. Yeah, I'd suggest just, hunkering down and doing your work well. It won't cut that much out of your social life.
You need to plan your time out and make sure that you force yourself to go to bed at a certain point. And if that means that you don't get work done, then maybe you need to get it done earlier. I don't know. In my experience, in my junior year, I had to do a lot of work, and I did work and sleep. And social life kind of came during the day. So eating lunch is the time when you can socialize with people. I don't know. It has to be compartmentalized.
But yeah, try to time management. Time management is good. So you kind of have to figure out how to balance everything out, and that can be tough. And I think generally a lot of people cut down on the sleep.
For juniors, it's the big year. If you're coming into junior year, it's the big year. And if there's any year to sacrifice your social life, it would be this one. This is the one where you look back and you say, wow, I'm such a nerd, I'm such a geek, I'm doing work at this hour, at this time, I'm pulling all-nighters. Yeah, it's part of the process. I mean, some people can't pull all-nighters. I'm one that can go 48 hours and, I'll be okay, and then I'll just crash somewhere. That's why I don't drive after 36 without sleep. That's a rule. So, yeah, junior year, really hunker down. It's okay to let the social life go. It'll come back senior year. Don't worry about it.
How do you recommend dealing with nights that are pretty sleepless?
Mountain Dew and Twix. That's how I did it. That's probably not the best way to do it, but it works. Yeah, try to get stuff done early and try to get stuff done in any break you have in study halls, and don't wait until 9 to start homework.
And I think I figured out best a couple of years ago that it just, I had needed to be home by 8, or it was just not going to be possible to get homework done. And if you have 3 hours of homework and you're starting it at 9, you inevitably will be so tired the next day that you're not functional. So it was just kind of I needed to find a way to do stuff earlier in the afternoon and then get work done later, and always make sure I was home and I got to eat dinner and stuff like that. That was really helpful for me.
Coming into senior year, close it off well. If you've got any wait lists that you're pursuing, then don't go by that rule. Oh, it's the new year. Oh, it's like the third trimester. I can just give up. Yeah, no. If if you're early action, early decision, you get in, you like it, that's wonderful. Try not to dip below a C. And believe me, that actually becomes harder than you think. I know a couple of my friends who had to pass in like AP papers last minute to walk across the stage. But yeah, there's definitely a focus element for the first part of it. And be disciplined. Get to your college applications early. Apply to the colleges that you really want to before deadline. If you're applying in that last week, chances are they're just going to look at your GPA and throw you out. So yeah, that's a tip. And of course, in general, if you're ever feeling too stressed out, take a moment and breathe. Even 5 or 15 minutes off does a world of difference. I know it's cheesy, but yoga, meditation, focusing on your breathing, there are these things that you can do that can actually really cut out of stress. And some people think like, oh my god, I don't have the time to take a break right now, I gotta do this, this, and this, and this. In reality, you're going to be more productive if you have a clear head going into what you're doing. So spending 5 minutes off and just not even thinking about anything, just sitting there, breathing, focusing on something else, but keeping your mind in one place for 5 minutes and then blasting out the next 55 is way better than using those 5 minutes for whatever jumbled, garbled mess you're going to spiral into.
I would definitely suggest making sure that you take stock of what your workload is. So the first couple of weeks, it's like, oh, this isn't going to be so bad, or it's introductory, or you think maybe it'll get easier. It probably won't. You should kind of get used to doing the amount of work it looks like you're going to have, and figure out if you need to do the reading all the time, or what stuff like that, how you're going to do your homework so that you can make sure that you've got yourself covered for class.
Make sure that when you're applying to colleges, to apply to kind of a big range of colleges, and to you don't need to visit colleges before you apply if they're far away, and a lot of people do kind of fly all around the country to visit colleges, and they end up losing a lot of days of school because of that, and using up their kind of college visiting days really early, which is not a very good idea. So what I did is, which I would suggest, is if a college is within a couple hours of driving distance, do visit. But if it's a flying distance, or if it's anywhere above 3 or 4 hours in a car, visit after you've been accepted and after you know that it's a school that you can let yourself fall in love with, and then visit and stay with somebody you don't know.
If you're going to college and you're looking to take your education to the higher level, you're going to have finals weeks, you're going to have weeks with crammed tests. They say every test in college is like a final, and every final in college is like something you've never seen before. And that's true. I've taken a college class, and that's very, very true. Multivariable calculus, any week where there was a test was a week like that, where I didn't do anything else. I just sat down and I kept going through and I kept reviewing and whatnot. It just becomes a part of life, and you have to face it. If it's something that you want, if education is something that you want to do well, then there are times when you have to sacrifice social life. That's just a reality you got to face. That or sleep, you know what I mean? And many times it's both. Let's be real. So I hate to have such a grim message, but yeah, I've had weeks where things have been totally crammed up, and at the end of it, I don't even remember it because I was in this sleepy daze. But in general, the hard work that I've put on in those weeks has paid off. And at the end of it, I was like, okay, yeah, I'm glad I bit the bullet on that one. Didn't enjoy the week, and walked out with the grades that I did, and the progress that I made.
It's important to have fun every once in a while, and let yourself have a good time, because otherwise you're not going to have a very good senior year if you don't. For me, it was allowing myself to be involved with Lights Up and with theater and stuff like that, and that was kind of my play hard, I guess you could say. But because you need those breaks, and otherwise you're not going to have a very good senior year.
I have like two modes. You have to either be working and be really focused on it, or it's just like ADHD checking Facebook, and that's not really very helpful, or going and doing some other activity and not thinking about school and not being stressed out, because otherwise it just doesn't work out well.
Find that group of people who have the kind of, well, they don't even need to have similar interests, but kind of similar value systems, I guess, and who you get along with well. And there are those people, and you will find those people. And once you have that group of friends, you're pretty much all set. And I mean, it's good to make new friends and to get to know new people too, but you don't really need more than just that group of people, so.
Duke! That's the first thing that comes to mind. That's like the thing that they say there. Work hard, play hard. Yeah. Yeah, I mean, like if you don't get some time off to yourself to go do something fun, you're gonna die, I think. I really think so. And that's one of the things that comes in with planning, is when I looked at my weeks, you know, I'd say I have a busy week, but I gotta make sure that I have some time somewhere to just go do something else. And it's not like I just, you know, sat around and was like, oh my god, I just gotta live my life for work. Really, true productivity comes from having that balance that they teach you, but it comes from making sure that you try to sustain a little bit of that balance. If you work for a week straight, don't take time off, your next week is going to suck and you're not going to get anything done in general. If you take a couple of breaks that week to go do something fun, your overall 2 weeks is actually going to be a lot more productive. So thinking about your time scale and how productive you need to be when is another layer of variable, but honestly you just have to spend some time and play. That's a big thing. And if you do work hard, I think you are warranted to play hard.
Stick with it, because it gets better. College is going to be great, so do that.
Thanks, Allie, for getting us that segment. And now, it is my distinct privilege and pleasure to hand it over to Allie, our show's graduating senior, for some last words before she leaves for college. Allie?
It's certainly hard to believe that I've been co-anchoring this show for a year and a half. How time has flown. This experience has come with many surprises, laughs, and learning opportunities. And somewhere along the way, I also managed to bring you some news. Had I not been involved with student news, I would never have learned of the outrageous stories of students who put vodka in their eyeballs, inspiring stories of students who sail solo around the world, the many tragic stories of teen bullying and suicide, and I would never have had the chance to meet members of the local government and school board. So I'd like to give a very special thanks to Josh and Jesse for giving me this opportunity in the first place. I felt so honored the first time that Jesse asked me to fill in for Emma Ayers, and I still feel honored now to have been chosen to bring you our news stories. I would never have been able to do such an important job without the help of the entire behind-the-scenes crew. They have done such an amazing job working for our teleprompters to allow us to read better, fixing our microphones to make us sound better, finding us stories to broadcast, and maybe the hardest job of all, just making us look good all the time with lights and cameras. I'd also like to thank ACTV Amherst Media for giving us such a nice space to work in, for essentially giving our program a home. After all, we're really just a bunch of kids, and who wants to trust us with their studio space? I suppose I should mention that Joshua Wolfson is not really a kid at all, more like a 30-year-old in a 17-year-old's body. It has been such a pleasure to have him as my co-anchor, my backup man, the person I can turn to when I have no idea what's going on. Lastly, I'd like to thank the entire town of Amherst and the wider community for both serving as our audience and for being liberal and open-minded enough to foster an entirely student-run news show. To everyone watching, it has been a pleasure to serve as your anchor, and I could not have done this without you.
Well, I think I can speak for the entire production team when I say it has truly been an honor. It's been an honor for me personally to sit behind this desk with you for the last year and a half, and I know it has been an absolute pleasure for all of us to work with you, and we're going to miss you.
I'll miss you guys.
So with that, that's it for us tonight on Student News. If you want to learn more about the show, or want to join the show, or want to donate money to the show so that we can keep doing it, go and check out our website at www.riverwolfproductions.org. Allie, thank you so much for all the time you've put into this.
Thank you, Josh. I'm Allie Charrington.
And I'm Joshua Wolfson. Stay strong and stay proud. We'll see you in September. Good night.
A past life finals and I got all A's. Yup, that's right, I'm a graduate, bitches. I graduated. That's how we do it with the mortarboard. Do you know what that is? It's a part of the graduation cap that's flat. And then there's the tassel, which is maroon and white and says 2011, because that's my year of graduation, because I'm a graduate. Yep, I graduated.